Hi Steve, super session to end the year for you. Just a quick recap of the key points that we discussed during your last visit. Just a quick look at where we were at the start of the previous session. We had the club working upwards and outwards too fast. We had the right arm folding too fast. Then the right elbow was getting pulled behind. Position at the top, very, very deep. Left arm well below the level of the left shoulder at that point, so the butt of the club was getting too far behind us at this point in the swing. So the advice you were given here was to keep the arms as straight as you can for as long as you can, to really give that top of the backswing some structural rigidity. And you can see there a marked improvement in the positioning of the butt of the golf club and the overall relationship between left arm and shoulders. So left arm sitting too flat at that point, left arm in a much better position at the start of this session. One thing that we did touch on during the takeaway here was that whilst the right arm didn't fold anywhere near as fast, everything was sort of drifting out a little bit. So we talked about getting that in a little bit more. I'm just going to bring up your footage from towards the end of this session down the line, so that we can have a look at how this progressed. So we wanted to get this left arm, or the hands in general, in a little bit more during the takeaway. And what we wanted to do really more than anything was tidy up the alignments. We want to keep the work going along the same lines that you've been working on here to arrive at a much better top of the backswing position. But we want to start tidying up these lines or these alignments at impact. We got the right shoulder working around too much rather than down and around. So turning on a tilted angle, that right shoulder comes forward too fast, which is an act of over rotation, pulling the club across, and we're getting a lot of toe strikes. Then as we come through the hit, we get a big gap between the knees, and we know when we look at that from face on, we have a situation where the upper centre drifts forward, and we have that flex forward look in the finish. The swing itself is more functional. This is just a case now of adding more detail as we go to tidy up some critical areas. So the key goal for us here is to realign things, if you will. We want, rather than shoulders being open and the right arm straightening too much, right elbow being pulled away from the side, we want to create a much better alignment, more neutral alignment coming into the hit. So what we've done here is we've got a head cover, squeezing it under the right arm, and we're asking you to keep the squeeze on during the whole of the swing. As you take the club back, there's more inward. So we see during the takeaway that the hands and the arms drift out less. Certainly the club drifting out less. As we come into impact, we're trying to keep this squeeze on. And the act of squeezing the arm against the torso is preventing the right shoulder from spinning out too fast, preventing the right arm from straightening too quick, and producing alignments that are much more neutral at impact. Shoulders squarer rather than open, right arm not as straight, right side not as high. As you then move through the swing from down the line, we see a much better extension, no gap between the knees, shoulders working on a different angle, legs straightening more, and that's going to have a much different look when we look at it from face on. So all that work of squeezing the pressure point, number 5, the right arm against the torso, starts to tidy things up from face on as well. We talked before about how things would appear based on what we were seeing from down the line. Historically, we've always seen this sort of image where the right arm sits very high at P5, elbow is away from the side, at P6, butt of the club outside the right thigh, and then the big one, which is the flexing forward through the hip. And whilst you've worked on that over the years, it has improved, it has become better, it's still proving problematic in regards to your progression. So you've moved forward with your game, which is great, but to take it to the next level, we need to start tidying these things up a little bit. So again, all we're doing here is still considering the backswing, keeping the arms straighter for longer, but keeping the head cover squeezed between the right arm and the side. In doing that, we appear to have a little bit more linear movement in the lower body, but more importantly, this elbow now that was away from the side is much more into the side. The release point is further forward, which is going to help with your low point control and the swing path. And then now, because of the improved position coming into the golf ball and that right shoulder working down and around rather than around, the extension through the hip and the separation of the two centres is dramatically improved. We weren't trying to achieve that. We figured that, in improving what pressure point 5 was doing, the effects that has on the swing, it would have a positive effect on this. But I think we both got a pleasant surprise to see how much that look had improved, something that you've striven for over a period of months, that you've worked towards, that you now understand much better than you did. That's the final piece in the jigsaw. You're now able to achieve the look, achieve the position that you desire without thinking too much about what you're doing. Improving your understanding, adding further and more detail as you go will allow you to play golf with fewer thoughts, and more importantly, play golf with more appropriate thoughts. Good luck with it. Look forward to working with you further during the coming year, and I think 2016 is going to be a real breakout season for you. Well done.